So let's face it, we all know the scoop. Anyone who's ever been pulled over by a pesky cop knows what I'm talking about. Any honest cop will tell you, and they probably know you first, and most likely they're off duty when they do spill the beans. If a cop wants to get you, he's got a whole book to throw at you. Anyone on any given day is breaking some law or another. If they want to take you down, you must comply, or get the smack down. The system is designed this way so anyone who rocks the boat or questions the establishment will be scrutinized and tortured like some heretic. They got everyone pinned down because they're control freaks, and I can't blame them. They did some very questionable things to amass their power and wealth, and they don't want to lose all they built. For thousands of years, people have lied, stolen, robbed, framed, maimed, poisoned, kidnapped, imprisoned, and killed to establish their position. And through the generations, this was maintained by their families and the cronyism of organizations. This is dynastic power and wealth. Once they have broken every rule to become the top position, they then create rules, licenses, permits, permissions, and laws to make it so you can never compete with them on their level. And in a good and honest way, you don't have a chance. How they did it was okay, but if you do it like them, you're a criminal. Let's face it, they're still committing these so-called crimes to this day. The only way you can compete is with war, and that's why they have fortified their armies. It's an arcane system, tried and true, but based on malevolence instead of benevolence, because they're so narcissistic that without them, everything would fall apart. What's worse, their narcissism begets more narcissism, for if they were to come clean and change, they would have to admit they were wrong. This happens in voting all the time. A politician says one thing and does another, but the voter sticks their decision and continues to root for their leader as to not reconcile the fact that they made a mistake and a poor choice. These technocrat oligarchs design the system in such a way as to conceal information so they can present solutions you could have come up with on your own with the proper training. And let's face it, they manufacture the problems anyway. Maybe that's why schools are so poor in teaching. All of the garbage flowing online, no leader has yet suggested a series of courses provided online in all fields of study that you can learn and test out of in place of compulsory schooling. That's because schools are designed for discipline and first established by the Prussians to bolster military efforts. Now we are so forsaken, both parents are bound to the slavery of their jobs, and there is no time to teach our own kids anymore. If you have Socrates as a tutor, you can conquer the world like Alexander the Great. Kind of like the Kwisatz Haderach in the story Dune. What makes the God King powerful is the memories of all their ancestors, and that knowledge is so powerful it helps them predict the future, as there is a natural order to things and history repeats itself, as we all have heard. These dynastically powerful, wealthy organizations know the secrets to the supreme order, and they have the connections and means to have their will actualized. The peasants are only taught to pull the plow and shine their shoes so the oligarchs can enjoy the elite stratification and service of the underclass. Sure, America's better than most other systems, as we somewhat have a glimpse of access to the secrets, and we can strive to amass great wealth. But power is never relinquished, and if you don't fit in and kiss rings in the king's court, you will be disappeared, and any leftover wealth will be decimated. Reminds me of a diamond guy, Benny Bernardo. He was a rags to riches businessman that outfoxed the good old boys across the pond. He took his ventures down to Kimberley to buy up diamond claims the common prospectors had thought were tapped out. He had a majority of the claims, and that meant he was calling the shots. But them good old boys wanted to be top dog and wouldn't merge into his company. They wanted to go their way. So they played a trick on him. They offered to buy a bucket of his diamonds just before they shipped off for the big industry meeting back home. Instead of buying the diamonds, they tipped the bucket over so Benny would have to take time and clean them up, forcing him to miss the boat. Benny could not miss the boat, or he would lose his one big chance to present the claims he had gathered and become the lion's share owner of the great diamond company. So Benny hurriedly swept the diamonds into a bucket, leaving morsels behind, as taking the time would be a penny wise and a pound foolish. He ran to the boat lickety-split, and to the good old boy's surprise, he made it. It was a stormy trip home, and old poor Benny fell overboard and didn't make that meeting. The only one to fall. Imagine that. And the good old boys thought it'd be best to honor old Benny by buying up Benny's tired old claims so his son could be rich and jockey around racing Bentleys with all the other good old boys' kids. Win-win, right? I mean, that's what Benny wanted, right? Those good old boys got stuck with all those lousy diamonds, and now you can see their mine from outer space, as it's so large on the surface and over 2 miles deep. They had a monopoly on diamonds for 100 years after that, and pretty much have attempted to strangle the market to this day. Go figure. One day I stumbled upon this article ages old about this ostentatious estate whose bushes were blocking the view of Lord Rothschild's estate. Some hot-shot, slick and flashy commoner had moved next door and built it his way. The bushes were just too tall, I suppose. The newcomer was poor old Benny. I'm guessing those bushes came down soon after his untimely demise. You are either in or you are out. And when you're in, you aren't you, or maybe you are you until they can't trust you anymore, or your entertainment value is up. You are either in it all the way, or you get scandaled, jailed, suicided, or the triple threat, you get Epsteined. Now, doesn't that sound like a gang? WCW was ahead of their time. NWO for life. I mean, you can have some fun climbing that ladder for sure, but you'll never reach the top rung. Maybe this is a brain spasm too far, but even when you buy a ladder from the store and you own it up and down, the top says very clearly, do not step here. One of those psychological symbols? Maybe just for our own good, like they told us. Well, against all warning, I step on the top rung. Do you? Does that make me so bad? I trust myself, and I'm okay making my own decisions. Does that make me a fool? But these days, they be putting guards on everything. Locks, fences, gates, barriers to entry, procedures, requirements, difficulties to purposefully hinder you from doing things and making them as difficult, cumbersome, and restrictive as possible. It's for your own good, right? I mean, the common man go down to the corner and he goes to jail, but Rocket Man has a yacht following his yacht full of paid dames so he can swap them out regularly and keep them fresh. This wealth, power, and prestige makes them above the law. If you have big money and some big shot lawyers, you can get off. And that's not because of justice, that's because of who you are. Insulated by a fortress of connections. This is why no one goes to jail when the Phantom Corporation gets busted. Sure, they were hurting people. Sure, it was wrong. But they enslave people with jobs, and they make things the other fat cats need. They don't want to slow production. Doesn't matter how evil it is. Big Tobacco got to run amok, but it's hard to shake the animosity of the mob when they found out they were targeting their children. Kinda reminds me of Big Sugar and all those bright-colored cereal boxes and candies they keep low on the shelves. I haven't seen any scary stickers on those products yet. Diabetes is endemic, and the majority of the taxes that go to Medicare and Medicaid subsidies are to fund dialysis machines where these vampires literally suck the blood out of patients and sell them fresh blood right back. That ultra-refined white dust is as addictive as hell, but it's a food, not a drug, right? Like that caffeine that keeps folks working harder and harder. As long as something's in it for them, you can have a taste. And that's our lot. We can have a taste if we obey the Baron's rule. If not, he'll send out his horsemen to torch your thatch roof. Same story, different day. The game is just bigger and more complicated, more confusing. But that's by design. I used to think taxes were just a way to extract funds from the weak as payment, not to crush them for it. But then I realized it's an ever-looming distracting fear that kills the mind, stymies creativity, and hinders innovation. Because innovation is the check against the status quo, and the only way to usurp power without institutional violence. Like the handicapper's general in the short story Harrison Bergeron, those buzzing earpieces for the intelligent to keep them from thinking too much. Every moment you ponder taxes or any other oppressive force, you lose your train of thought to a better life. Even Steve Jobs wore the same clothes every day as not to distract him from anything but innovation, and he's some hero, right? Think if he had all your burdens, those everyday issues sapping your mind and strength. One of my favorite heroes was the blundering fool Ernest P. Worrell. He wore the same clothes every day, but it was his big heart and integrity that made him great. He was some kind of inventor as well. Can't we dispose of these distractions for the greater good? Wouldn't the innovation be more valuable than the racketeering funneled into bureaucracy, management, and administration? I mean, they even say it clear as day. There are only two things one cannot avoid: death and taxes. Well, one is made by nature, or God, however you believe, and the other by man. Let me guess which one is hogwash. And what kind of system of fear is this? It's designed to create fear by emulating and comparing it to death? And you can escape your fear of death by the everlasting faith of endurance beyond the mortal world, transcending to the supernatural. But you can't escape racketeering made by man? That's a masterful gaslight right there. The only thing man can't escape is man's power? I'm calling that out. That's blasphemy, an abomination. Well, I guess you could escape it if you got nothing. Poor and penniless, like some homeless folk with no voice, nothing to lose, and despised by all. This is by design, so we don't listen to the truth from down low. They don't call it financial freedom for nothing. They don't want us to hear the truth, the secrets they hold that could topple their reign. Look at all the good ones. Jesus assassinated, Gandhi assassinated, MLK assassinated. Rock the boat and get tipped over. Jackson stopped the sleazy usury banks and 2 men came for him. By the grace of blessing, both pistols jammed. Lincoln busted the bank with his greenbacks and pop. JFK tried to set up with silver and gold and crack. This may be a stretch, but MJ got his hands on too many musical rights and they drove that saint into insanity. And then that mix up with the pills. Ever see what he did for diversity with Kevin McAllister? And then that Earth song, Rapture video? I'm pretty sure I witnessed the presence of some kind of angel on Earth right there. Yet they cast him as a demon as soon as he got too big for his britches. I don't know these guys as heroes or saints, but all that oil in the Middle East was gravy until Saddam and Gaddafi wanted to trade in gold. They dragged that Gaddafi dude on live TV for all the world to see, just like Edward Tudor did to King Richard. That Tudor king then backdated the documents of leadership and executed all who opposed him on the battlefield, as if he were king before he won the crown. Everyone below him in Parliament allowed it because of the fear. I was astonished. I felt empowered by the live Saddam trial too. They tried to defame him. Let's face it, he did terrible things. But when he told that kangaroo court that he was a king and the trial was a farce, so they should just kill him and stop rationalizing, as he is the sovereign and they have no jurisdiction or authority over him. That they broke the rules just like everyone else at the top is doing, but he ain't in the club anymore. And I heard Gaddafi was building a waterway to drench the people in the desert with prosperity. Sounds good, right? But apparently the scientists said it would hurt the environment. So poof, he gone. Who knows what Osama knew? He at the bottom of the sea. Kerploop. Just like old Benny. Now, I don't know what these guys were about because I was taught to hate them. And their knowledge was concealed from me, and I dared not peek, as that desire is opening the perpetual light box to Leviathan. Like father to son in the movie Apocalypto, don't get sucked into the fear if you want to live free in joy. I knew in my heart that Osama and his ilk were proselytizing institutional violence before I even knew what it was, so naturally I had an aversion to it. But are different ideas so bad, so dangerous, to even hear them would permanently corrupt one's soul? Sticks and stones, right? Are we thought to be so weak that the boogeyman has to be black-bagged so we may not become infested by his thought and possessed by their will? I once heard the epidemiology of the word government, or what it means broken down in the old tongue, is mind control. Is that what everything of this oppression is about? Narcissistic egomaniacs greedily hoarding all the resources and controlling the flow so they can wield the minds of the masses? Like in Conan the Barbarian the movie, the riddle of steel was forsaken for the power of flesh. Iron will was set aside for subjugation, to control desire, to steer the flock right into their mouth. Like a cobra who has taken the flute from the charmer, they lure you in, but the only way to survive is to become a snake yourself. The current big gaslighting is the whole environment thing. The sky is falling. Sure, I see some signs. So did the masses at the step of the pyramid. Sure, the sun was eclipsing, but was it as it seemed? I mean, astronomy is real too. But what they did with it is ghastly. Were the human sacrifices justified? I mean, strip mining for coal is bad, burning coal is dirty, but strip mining cobalt for batteries is good? And the deformed children surrounding the mine is good? The scientists have swooped in, but it's not conclusive. Just swarms of people complaining about stumpy limbs and extra fingers. Correlation doesn't verify causation, but we got an extra hurricane and it's been hot for a few years, and that's the stone cold, can't be questioned, get with the program or you are just awful right there. This science is more real than an Extends commercial. And let's be clear, I don't deny it could be the case. What I don't approve of is disputing opponents getting shut down. We all have been seeing and hearing more and more of that kind of thing these days, as if opposition is evil. Somehow people will physically get hurt by hearing a conflicting opinion? This is totally upside down and inside out. We are supposed to hear everyone and everything, and the truth will prevail. Not corporate interests lobbying to design the truth and shaming people who can't add up shoddy math. Because none of this adds up. Unless you subscribe to a dog-eat-dog world where the end justifies the means. And don't forget to try and hide it as to not upset everyone with their arrogant design. That is the Victorian way. Guess that's an age-old story. Want to be somebody, you gotta be mean. Better learn to enjoy it, whatever lot you got. Maybe you can move up. If the group's small, you might become a big fish in a small pond. But you can never leave the gang. You can't get out the game. You can't turn that new leaf. You sold your soul, and one way or another try to escape, and you are dragged back, because the ocean is an abyss, and you will never be the Leviathan. As they said in the movie Forrest Gump, seats taken.